We have top people from all over the place. We have Gary that is joining us for the keynote. He's situated in London. We have Hasit in Asia. He's situated in Colombo in Sri Lanka. And we have Tobias, who is situated in Ålesund, beautiful Sunnmøre in Norway, but he's actually German, and myself in Oslo. I'm really happy that you're all here. This is the very first of many webinars where we are looking at the product owner, product management role. Because what we see is that this role is forming, and with the super speed that software and technology products are developing, that role is so key and vital for any company's success. And that's what we'll try to shed some light on today and some clarity on. We will be recording this webinar so you can revisit it and also share it with others. So hope that's okay with you. So guys, today the keynote speaker, I'm really happy that he's with us, Gary Avery. He is the CEO and consultant at Tarigo Product Management. And Gary has trained more than 20,000 product managers in over 30 countries. He has a decade of experience in product management and played roles including marketing manager at Hewlett Packard. He's been a product director at Micromuse, where he managed the core product management team with P&L responsibility of a revenue stream generating more than US dollars 100 million. So Tarigo, since 2003, has been really working with a lot of companies to clarify this role, to make it smoother for you guys to execute your role. And Tobias, who will be joining us on the panel, he is the product owner currently of Trace store management system as a log tech company solver. Tobias has been in product development professional for many years, and he's been leading experienced global teams to bring software products all the way from the very concept phase to commercialization. And he's really passionate about driving innovation and using all these agile approaches to accelerate the development. And what I adore about Tobias is his ability to delight customers while still bringing that product out, generating the revenue streams, how he is able to motivate his teams as well. So he's been across all platforms, working with all platforms in both telecom, healthcare, and log tech. And we have Hasit as well. Hasit, he is the CTO of a full stack 420 staffed consultancy company, 99X, who has hyper specialized in products and platforms. And I know many of you are working with us, which is great. Hasit has taken more or supported our clients in taking more than 150 products to the market, which are continuously living and breathing and being enhanced. So it's quite a strong panel. And I'm Carrie, I'm the business development director in 99X. And I personally feel that this community should have been founded like years ago, because this role is so important that you all hold. So today, we'll start with Gary having sort of a 20-minute keynote session where he'll speak about what is product management, what is the CPO role, and what is it not. And then we'll enter into a panel discussion. And then we'll wrap it up. And I promise you, we will not spend one more minute than the 60 minutes this time. Also, please feel free to use the chat if you have questions that you want to ask the panel or any of the speakers or each other as well. And I would also ask you to place any suggestions for topics for the webinars, things that are high on your agenda that you're puzzling with, would like to discuss and shed some light on. So it's my super joy to give the word to you, Gary. It will be a blast.
Well, thank you very much, Carrie, and thank you for that very warm introduction. I feel I've got a lot to live up to there. Hopefully you can all see my screen now. Can you just give me a thumbs up? You can see something there. Fantastic.
Yes, good.
Well, we're working well already. And as Carrie said, I'm just going to deliver a 20-minute presentation, but feel free to question and comment as we go through this session. I'll make sure that I can see chat as well before we actually get started. Yeah, I've got that there. And I've called it rather grandly, Product Management Demystified. But what we'll do in this session is really give a sense of the role. What do product managers do? What's the purpose? How does it fit with product ownership? What are the tasks and activities that we get involved in? And I guess where can it go wrong? So where do we focus to make sure that it goes right? Now, I promise there's not a lot of this. One quick slide, just describing who we are. Carrie's already done a great introduction. I'm Gary Avery. I've been in the product management space now for 33 years. I know I surprise myself by my youthful looks. And Torigo as a business works exclusively in the product management training and consultancy space. We do three things. We offer boot camps, which is core training for product teams. We offer Pro Series, which is that next level around leadership or specific skills. And we do something called Product Excellence, which is where we work with an organization to actually drive the teams, the skills, the process, the governance, the whole package to deliver product excellence. There's a nice little quote from one of our customers, and that is from Zeiss Meditech over in Germany. Our customers range from ThyssenKrupp, Hermo Group, Zeiss, Citibank, MasterCard, Sage, GlaxoSmithKline, Google, shouldn't really miss those, BMW, Cambridge University. We work with spin-outs from the software divisions or the software chapters there. Many and varied customers, as Carrie said, 20-something thousand people trained, roughly 1,000 big corporate customers globally. And hopefully what we can go through today is based on my own experience and what we learn as we consult and train across many, many markets. I've got chat open and I'm more than happy to have questions as we go. You'll also get the opportunity to speak at the end of this as well. So let's start with this big question. What is it that you do? Now that might be a question that you've heard if you're a product manager. What do you do as a product manager? And it can be really difficult to answer briefly and coherently and concisely. But let's make an attempt at trying to work out what we do. I think you can describe the role at 50,000 feet in so many ways, but this is what we do. We, as a group, solve customer or markets, to be more precise, needs whilst achieving business goals. And if you think of what that means, we actually focus on three things. We've got to make sure that our customers are delighted. So we've got to deliver value. We've got to make sure that our business is credible, coherent, profitable, right? And we've got to make sure that what we do or what we suggest is going to be done is technically feasible. So product managers actually to meet this goal of solving market needs whilst achieving business goals, work across these three areas: customer delight, sort of business success, and tech capability. Now, different product managers will see that in different ways. If you work in MasterCard or Citi, the technology sort of envelope is smaller. The business one is bigger. If you work in Google or Amazon, that technology one will be bigger. But essentially, we do those three things. Now, that starts to actually make the role simple to understand. What is your purpose when you arrive at your office every day? It's that: solve market needs whilst achieving business goals. But we can take it one level simpler than that. How about this for a description of what we do? Now, this comes from one of my CEO's from many years ago. Carrie mentioned I was in a business called Micromuse. My CEO was a guy called Greg Brown. Greg Brown is now CEO of Motorola. So, I think a pretty significant CEO in the tech industry. Now, he was my boss for many, many years and still someone I work with today. But one of the many things I learned from Greg was the simplicity of what we need to do. Now, Micromuse built business-to-business software solutions. And his view of our world was this simple. We solve issues that keep customers awake at night. And he actually got it down to this simple statement of, we solve 3 a.m. issues for our customers. Now, I think if you come into work every morning and that's what you recognize as a team you do, then you're in the right direction. And if you think of what that means, and specifically in the business-to-business sectors, what does that mean? Well, if a customer, if an individual wakes up in the night and is worried about a problem, a business problem, they will find the motivation to fix it. So as a product team, that's where we go. And the Greg Brown view of the world is, if you solve a 3 a.m. problem well, revenue and profit will follow very, very quickly. And I think it's a really refreshing way to look at what we do. So if you think of those two sort of ways, right, that we think about our role at 50,000 feet, we solve market needs whilst achieving business goals. But even more simpler than that, we solve 3 a.m. issues. Now, what does that really mean? Well, the next thing to think of is who's involved. When I say we, I'm talking about this product team. Well, there's actually what I call a triad. Now, in some organizations, if I took you into Sage, the triad turns into a quadrant. If I took you into City, it might turn into a hexagon or something like that. But there's these 3 major functions that you want to think about in the product triad. This is the group who are tasked with most of the product team activities, delivering against that 3 a.m. pain point, making sure that we deliver market needs whilst addressing business goals. And I'm going to pick on down in the corner here, first of all, the product manager, right? So the product manager is foundational to any product triad. And their job is very commercial in its intent, right? But their job is to uncover and define initiatives, ideas that tackle real customer pain. But also at the same time, align with the capability and strategic intent of the business. So they're looking for commercial ideas, and we call those initiatives. Now, what's the difference between a product manager and a product owner? I would suggest it's like a product owner is more technical, is more tactical, and is more in the day-to-day. A product manager is more strategic and takes a bigger view. Now, in the context of the product manager defining initiatives, the product owner takes delivery of those initiatives, typically as epics. So Carrie mentioned that Tobias is going to speak about Agile, or has expertise in Agile. Now, Agile is, I would say, 90% of our customers now talk Agile. Perhaps 50% of them do Agile, but there's still a gap there. But the product owner takes delivery of epics, high-level user stories, and tries to turn those epics into detailed stories, and then into tasks, and then through some sort of Agile methodology that could be SAFe, could be Scrum, could be XD, could be a mixture or a hybrid of those methods, drives a product backlog and a sprint backlog to efficient delivery. So they work at a more technical level.
Just a quick question. Yeah, because I see in some companies, the product owner role and the product manager role is sort of merging. So that product person holds or is expected to hold both roles. Could you please share your thoughts on that as well?
So you're absolutely right. And you'll see this in different regions. There's more prominence of this. Silicon Valley actually has a more and has a more blended product owner, product manager role. Even within certain businesses, product manager and product owner are defined differently. So you do see this. Now, there is an issue, we'll get onto the issue with it in a moment. But the major issue is that when you stretch a product manager into the product owner brief as well, that's a stretch of capability and skill and experience that might be a stretch too far. So can a product owner, or can that product manager stroke product owner hybrid be fantastic at building out the journeys and stories that are required to drive development, and at the same time be fantastic at uncovering commercial initiatives and building out the product vision and dealing with all of the high level commercial stuff? Now, I would argue that's possible, but it's a stretch to find individuals that can cover that whole breadth, and we'll go there in a moment. The third person we have in the triad is product marketing. Now, again, to Carrie's point, in smaller businesses in particular, this triad might be an individual, but the product marketeer is basically tasked with making sure that we drive out our product out to market. So it's placed, it's positioned, it's communicated as well as possible, because we recognize that building a great product does not necessarily mean market success. You know, build it and they will come is a title of a film from many years ago. It's not how you drive successful product out to market. So you need that marketing angle in the team as well. Now, so if you think we've got this, product managers or product teams solve 3 AM problems. There's a product manager, product owner, product marketing sort of angle to it. That could be one individual. That's a real stretch. In bigger organizations, it's likely to be, you know, 3 people. What do these people do? Well, they actually work through a life cycle, and there's lots of different ways of describing this. Within our business, we describe it using this thing called 5 Ds, right? So the product team, first of all, go to a direct phase. And in direct, they make sure that they've got strategic intent. So before you start on the journey of building out a product, it's important that you've got a vision. Where do you plan to be in 1, 3, 5, or 10 years? Without that vision, you have no idea whether the next step you take is in the right direction or not. On top of that vision, they go through discover, right? So if you think of the vision as the director's foundation, discover, next level up, they look for, identify high level innovation that delivers, that takes them towards their vision. So they're looking for the stepping stones on their roadmap towards their vision. The next thing they do, having a vision and having some high level initiatives doesn't get you to product. The next thing they do is go into the detail. So that's a definition phase where they work out the detail of their business plan, typically a product plan for product managers, and the detail of their requirements. So epics into store tasks. They then think about delivery, so making sure that it's well structured. Delivery is more than the product. It's the place, it's promotion, it's communication. There's this model called the 7 Ps of marketing. We think about all of those through deliver. And then it's into drive. And a real critical part of the product discipline is that once we're in market, we don't deliver and drop. We look for constant small scale improvements, because product success typically doesn't come on first release. There's very few overnight sensations. I was once talking to an entrepreneur, and he told me that he'd been an overnight sensation. It took him 10 years to be an overnight sensation, which I thought was a good way of seeing it. In the drive phase, you look for small scale improvements, things like marginal gains that give you a better place in the market. So what have we said? Well, the product team look for 3 AM issues. They drive market success whilst achieving business goals. They do it through this triad: product owner, product manager, product marketeer. And they have these clear, quite distinct steps of activities that they're involved in, depending on where their product is in life cycle, from setting out the vision to refining it in life. Now let's get more into the detail of this. Oops. So what do they do, right? Now, as we're seeing, and Carrie mentioned this, that the roles, product manager and product owner sometimes blend. The role product manager, product owner, product marketeer sometimes blend. So the way that we're tackling this with many organizations now is to say, underneath that 5D model of the major tasks, major themes, the sets of tasks. So a role is essentially a set of tasks assigned to that individual. Now, if you think of taking a product or service to market, within this screen, there's just under 40 tiles here. This describes the tasks that product teams get involved in. So market trend analysis, building out your vision, pricing, personas, journeys, messaging, marginal gain, win-loss analysis are some of the things that we do. Now, what this can mean is as you step across different organizations, this can be diced and sliced in different ways. So if I showed you a MasterCard view of this, it looks very different from a ThyssenKrupp view of this, which looks different from a Zeiss view of this. Generally speaking, the core activities split into these three buckets that we typically describe them as led by. So direct, discover, and define, and part of define, product management led. So product managers are at the front end of a process. They make sure they understand market conditions, they build out their vision, they look for high value initiatives, they get to a point of a product plan. POs tend to lead the detail, taking those epics from a product manager and thinking personas, journeys, stories. And I've not even touched in those tiles there on all of the ceremonies and structure around Agile that POs are involved in. Product marketeers tend to be heavily involved in that delivery phase. So messaging, launching, channel readiness type stuff. And then in the drive phase, I'd argue it's a product management led piece where once the product is in market, we're doing win-loss analysis all of the time, looking for marginal gain improvements, managing the life cycle in terms of replacement strategy. Now, this isn't a fixed view because in your organization, in any team, it could be that you sort of balance the skills in a different way. So what we argue is that all of these tasks, each of these tiles needs to be complete. How you structure your team is really a function of capability, skills, and experience within that team. And feel free, by the way, to add or subtract tiles onto these sorts of models. Everybody can look slightly different. One thing that's worth pointing out is that in the middle of discover, the second column, discover, we've got lots of tasks that I've described as product manager led. So, and it's really design thinking, you know, uncover new customer pain points, size opportunities, see how well they fit with the business. Product managers do that at 50,000 feet. Product owners use those same skills at 5,000 feet. So there tends to be, the only difference between those roles is the product manager is looking at the overarching product view and the product owner is taking it much more into an individual story, but they still go through proper design thinking. Now, here's the tricky bit, right? There's a lot of skills in there. It's impossible, I'd argue impossible, to find someone who is equally capable across every single one of those skills, right? So if I guess if I was to have a conversation with Tobias and he would be heavily biased towards Agile, I'm sure he would sort of then be able to run a rings around me in terms of his Agile knowledge, Agile capability. And hopefully I'd be impressive in other parts of the process, right? So what you tend to do to look at when you look at an organization is the heat map. So each of those skills, you ask 3 questions about each of those skills at an individual level, but then you can roll that up into a team or a business level. So the first thing you look at, and probably the most controversial, is does the individual have capability? So capability is basically asking at their core, are they able to actually learn this? Now that's sometimes difficult, sometimes not. So I've picked out product financials as the one that we're going to look at. Think of that in terms of core capability. If someone, well, here in the UK, if somebody couldn't get a basic grade of mathematics, I would argue they've probably not got the core capability to manage product financials. So it's typically around, core, what they're actually good at. Now, the other two are less controversial. Skills, have they got the tools, the templates, the methodologies embedded, right? So have they been trained? Have they read? Do they know what to do with regards to product financials? So that could be a conversation about, tell me about profit and loss, cash flow, balance sheets, and break-even points, whatever the conversation needed to be, right? And then the third one is experience. So having the skills is great. You know what to do. Have you really done it in proper real world situations? So we learned earlier today, Hasith has launched 100 and something products, right? That's huge real world experience that would give lots and lots of positivity into that box there. So what we do for the individual is think of the heat map. You could actually take this away and think of your own heat map. Where are your capability, skills, and experience? Then we roll that into a team, and then that gives you this really clear view of your organization. And then you can start to think about people. How do you want to separate out the roles? Who do we need to recruit to make this, to fill the gaps? What are our plans for the next 2 or 3 years? And where are our gaps in skills and experience and capability to fill those gaps? And if you see, we've gone from saying this sort of product manager, product owner, product marketeer, there are 3 roles, into saying there's actually a set of capabilities and skills and experience that you need. You can choose how to position those. Different organizations will do that differently. Now, final slide from me. Don't want to outstay my welcome today. And I just wanted to touch on, if we've got this sort of model of like, okay, these are the things that we need to be good at, what drives success, right? And you can argue that over your career, you'll find different things drive success. But here are some of the top things that we see as driving product success or product failure within the team, right? So the first thing that can drive a team to success or failure is the inability to balance their strategic and their tactical intent. Stop firefighting, start strategizing. The rationale there is that typically when a team is busy, it's busy with day-to-day activities. And if it does not think about the future 2, 3, 5 years ahead, then that future can get taken away. Now, examples are many and varied. Go and look at, the case studies of Kodak, Blockbuster, HMV, any number of businesses, and you'll see that they do not exist today because they didn't pay attention to the strategic direction of their markets. They got tactical when they should have been strategic. Second thing that you'll see in really driving teams is the capability to actually get stuff done, make effective decisions and stick to them. What you'll see in some teams is they navel gaze for too long, think too long, and don't actually do, right? Doing rather than thinking. And they get sort of caught in this trap of trying to deliver product perfection. And in the trap of delivering product perfection, they forget that a perfect product cannot be perfect if it's 12 months late or 24 months late, or in one case we saw 5 years late, right? So product perfection has a time element about it. Get stuff done is critical. And by the way, just a shout out to the 99X team. If you want a team who know how to get stuff done, and my experience of these guys is that that's one of their areas of excellence. Working to a process and a plan. One of the things we notice is that some teams can get one product out of the door. And it's sort of like having that You know, if you think of it in the music industry, the difficult second album, right? The difficult second album is that many product teams can't get a good second product out of the door because they don't have structure and governance. So a governance process becomes more necessary when your business becomes busy. You can typically get away with it on the first product release. You can't by product release 2. And good product teams tend to be highly communicative. They communicate early, clearly, and well, and nobody's left in the dark about their sort of major issues, major concerns, or what needs to be done to drive product success. So they communicate well with their stakeholders, they communicate well with their customers. I would actually say, you know, I've never seen an effective team with poor communication skills. They work as a team. Now, working as a team is really the core of what we've been talking to today, right? There isn't really such a thing as the complete product manager, the complete product owner, the complete marketeer. Individuals have hotspots and skills, and working as a team means embracing the difference. So when you're building your perfect team, it does not want to be full of facsimiles, right? Everybody looks and feels and acts the same. You actually want to embrace culturally and skill-wise differences to really get strength in a team. Know your market. Without doubt, the winning teams that we see know their customers and look like they know their customers because they obsess about knowing their customers. I tell a story that I worked with a team over in Holland, and they went out with, on customer visits with cameras like webcams sort of strapped to their chest, like we see with the police service and things like that. Recorded the whole day of interaction with their customers and then curated that into content. So they know their customers, they look like they know their customers, they gain credibility across the organization by their deep insight. And by the way, product managers have opinions. Opinions are irrelevant, right? So the product management skill set is actually bringing evidence to life through knowing your customers. And then the final thing is this, and this is probably the softest part of the skill set, but one that you'll see dominant in effective teams. Product managers are entrepreneurs. Product managers have that sort of proper commercial instinct and drive, naturally drive to commercial success. So they make good entrepreneurs. And by the way, 60%, I think it stands at now, of CEOs in Silicon Valley are ex-product managers. It's a hotbed of entrepreneurship when you see good product management teams in play. They think about how to actually win in market all of the time. So yeah, different businesses would have, would focus and prioritize those habits in different ways. But over the years, we've worked in the product management space. Yeah, you certainly can pick examples of every one of those that teams succeed and fail because of their adherence or lack of adherence to one of those skills. Now, that was a sort of quick 20-minute fly through. I hope you enjoyed that overview. From my perspective, thanks for listening. If you've got any, questions, comments, more than happy with Carrie. And I think Tobias, you said we're going to be sort of taking those questions now.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Gary. After that fabulous introduction to the product manager role, I'm excited to see what comes in the panel discussion. So I'm Hasit. I'll be the moderator of the panel discussion for the next 20-25 minutes. So if you have any questions, please free to be interactive and forward those questions on the chat, or even raise your hand so that we can unmute you. So since Kari did the introductions to the panelists, I can actually directly get into the discussion. So we have Gary and Kari and Tobias today in this panel. Let me direct the first question to you, Tobias. This is regarding the expectation management. I think we all know when we do products, it's a highly dynamic environment. The new competition comes in every day, customer trends changes daily. So with all of that, the expectations from the stakeholders around that is also becomes quite dynamic and changing. And in that background, Tobias, you are the ideal person to talk about this, being a hands-on product manager. How do you manage these changing expectations of different stakeholders?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Very well.
Yeah, super. First of all, thanks for the introduction, Asit and Kari Bente. And Gary, that was an excellent presentation and keynote speech. There is a lot of stuff that I recognize from my daily work without, of course, always having the rule book on my desk. But I was nodding several times by what you or about what you said. I have to say about everything I'm talking about is, of course, I don't have the overview that Gary has. So everything I'm talking about is my personal experience as a product manager, product owner. I first came in touch with agile development in about 2007, 2008. And have been working with different agile methodologies in digital product development ever since. Has even been in some companies, the roles, Gary, as you described, what the product manager and the product owner does, the title was exactly the opposite. So the guy sitting on top was called the product owner because the company thought like, well, he's the top boss, so he owns it. And the product managers were actually the guys running the agile teams. So, I mean, it's since there's no definition of what a product manager and a product owner exactly does, no standardized definition. It's yeah, different companies handle this differently, but in general, I very much agree, Gary, what you say. From my perspective, if someone would have asked me, Tobias, how do you define product management? I would have said, well, I, as a product manager, I have to make sure that we build something that helps our customers. I make sure that my team does something meaningful. And that's probably a very broad description of what, Gary, what you described in detail. But for me, everything starts with the customer, or not even with the customer, with the user. Why do I differentiate that? I also see a difference. I've been developing solutions both B2C and B2B. In my current role, I'm doing B2B development. And I think that's even more complex. Why? If you develop a B2C solution, the customer and the user is the same person. So you will always, if you make the user happy, you make the customer happy, and vice versa. So and in that position, you can very much rely on analytics to or not just analytics, but analytics is one tool, and user feedback to constantly improve the solution and make your customer / user happy. In a B2B environment, it's a bit different because usually the customer is not the user, meaning someone who's in management is usually not the one who's working on the ground, is using our solution in their daily business, in their daily job.
But then those external stakeholders, Tobias, how do you like manage, like internally also you have a lot of stakeholders, your development team, your sales team, the top management. How do you manage the expectations in such a changing dynamic environment?
Well, through communication, and Gary, you had it in one slide. It's early, it's open, it's direct communication. As soon as something changes or we have new information, then we need to, I as a product manager or product owner, I need to communicate this both internally and to our customers. That's the most important thing. I personally interpret my role as a product manager also more like an ambassador to the team. So I talk to all the stakeholders, both internally and externally, and ideally, of course, also with our end users. And then I communicate this with the team, what the direction is, what we should develop. And if we then gain insight that something has changed around us, then it's also my role to communicate this to all our stakeholders. The issue,
both good and bad, both good and bad news, right? Both good and bad things, communication, especially the bad things.
Yeah, bad things. I mean, I don't think there's, of course there are some bad things, but in general, I mean, if things change, I see it rather as a challenge. So for me as a product owner, to get the team to a very efficient level, I want everyone to feel they also own the product. And as such, I do not get involved too technically in the daily development. I need to understand what components are needed and how the data is flowing. But that's one key thing. But in every product, in every project, product development that I've experienced, especially in B2C, in B2B, you have a customer, a company that wants a solution, and you first discuss what do you actually want, and you draw out a plan, and you say, okay, we think we understand what you want, so we start developing a prototype, but based on that discussion, we say this will take a couple of months, 3 months, let's say, to develop this, and then we actually start after the contracts are signed, we start talking to the users, and we go like, yeah, this is what we are going to develop. Yeah, that's super, but we also need this. This is very important for us, and we need this. And then you start discussing how to solve this. And again, such a scenario, I always like to solve open communication and say, okay, this was not agreed. I really see your point. As a product owner, I want to build a product that you really love and that that helps you in your daily job. But of course, then the expectation management is what do my internal stakeholders, our management, and of course the customers management, they have this expectation. Oh, in 3 months, there's a solution that our employees will love and that makes their job better. But those people in the meantime, they have a different idea and they want something else. So it's really communicating, try to get everyone involved and informed if the environment changes. And that's not just that the customers, users have different ideas. That's also about, let's say, a change in technology. If the new technology is all of a sudden available, which would make this in general a much better product, but it might drag on a little bit longer, then that's, again, it's about communicating.
That's actually an interesting point to get into the next question, actually. Thanks, Tobias. Kari, I think Tobias mentioned about deadlines and dragging and all of that, sometimes scope creep. What happens when that happens? You have certain expectations from the top management, because usually products means heavy investment. So what are the typical expectations from the board or the ownership point of view? Because I know you deal quite a lot of with that layer in product development.
Oh, great question, Hasit. I find it varies dramatically depending on the experience with software products, really. Because in many boards, you have people that are used to the old type of business models, and their question will be, when is the product finished, and which revenue stream will it generate? And that's really in breach of the agile continuous development part. And I think the most important part when communicating to the board level is to ensure that you at least have 2 dimensions. The maturity when it relates to market saturation. So that is, how many clients do you have, which revenue stream does it generate, and how far can this revenue stream go? But additionally, you need to show the maturity of the product, because sometimes you will start out having quite a good revenue stream on a really green and fresh product. So you would actually invest in it if it makes sense from a financial revenue stream perspective. And also the other way around, that you don't really have a revenue stream, but your product is actually really mature and the market you can take it to is huge, and the problem it will solve is obvious. And that easy way of communicating those variables, I think, is really crucial to give that wriggling room or that maneuver room that an organization needs. And I find this might also be necessary for the CXO level, because obviously not every company is provided with the people that really sort of understand that product manager, product owner role. So you need to do that translation into a language that is understood by the head of delivery that might be chasing products and deadlines for their clients, and also to the sales reps, the commercial people. And I find it varies. If you're a sort of startup, early scale-up period, that is harder to do and even more important. But when you get into that more mature state, it's easier to have that for 10,000 meter perspective, and you can sort of easier route your roadmap and be very clear on it. But it's so important, because what if you don't communicate this and also put sort of financial figures on it, you might end up burning all your cash, getting that traction with the market, but then it just stops. And you've spent, you know, your 3 a.m. time loving and owning your product and what it's supposed to do for your users, and it just is waste. So it's so important. And to make the complex easier, I think it's always remember that your audience does not have the same insight as you do. So you should sort of make it really, really, really sort of easy and clear to understand.
Absolutely, yeah. The financial runway is not only about development, it's about taking the product finally to the market as well.
Exactly. Yeah, because shareholders are looking at their value, aren't they? Short-term, long-term value.
Yes. So, so let me take the discussion to a bit of a different subject. Gary, this question is to you. Not everybody comes from product background, so some comes from enterprise background as well. In an enterprise project, you have project manager, and then in a product development company, you have this product owner, product manager. So the skill set, are they the same, or do product managers require a different skill set than a typical project manager in enterprise?
In enterprise, well, I think what we're seeing sort of more and more is this sort of faster pace within product teams, and what we're seeing is, I guess, the advent of sort of what I would describe as digital versus enterprise, right? And if you think in this digital world, we've got a number of things that are really driving differences within the product management function, and it sort of becomes more important that the product manager thinks and acts like a CEO, because we got this world now where data dominates everything, right? We can see that every direction that we look, we're overwhelmed by data, and so that gives an immediacy to decisions that can be made. Products are built differently in this new world than they were. In the old enterprise world, it was proper sort of siloed structure. Now we're moving at pace, right? So even if you think of sort of big ticket products, we work with Sage on their core products. There's an expectation. Now those were classic enterprise products. There's now an expectation that you go from ideation to delivery in weeks, not months or years. It's weeks. And at the same time as software as a service is simplifying the experience for customers, it's adding complexity to the ecosystems for product managers. So where we used to have, sort of on-premise type software, we're now dealing with multiple bundles, pricing, platforms, APIs. And we've even got this difference in sort of what you might think of as the execution pod, right? So it used to be these different teams, and now we're getting these sort of intact teams of, so developers, designers, marketeers, customer success, customer experience, all in one sort of tight team. So the traditional silos that we worked in are different. There's these more sort of fast moving business units. And you've also got the sort of consumerization of IT. So that's what that's done, was elevated design, the role of design in products and services. 5 years ago, even, there really wasn't much in the way of UX sort of thought about in most products. Beginning of my career, it was an afterthought, right? And now it's a real driving function for many products and services because expectation is so high because of the consumerization of IT. So I think when you look at a traditional enterprise versus product or service versus where we're going, it's the digitization that's really driving, and the speed that that brings, that's really driving change into the role. If you're going to think of one sort of key around that, it's product managers in that new world have to act like fast moving, nimble CEOs of a small business around their product. That's really different from the structured approach of an enterprise product manager 15 years ago.
Sure, thanks. And we are getting some questions from the audience here. One question, let me read it. At which point of time you realize the product needs to be retired? Assuming you still get the same revenue from that product. So any of the panelists, if you would like to answer that?
I'm happy to make a first pass at that. There's this idea of a product life cycle. So if you want to read around this, Geoffrey Moore, Crossing the Chasm, Inside the Tornado, are great reads on this. It categorizes life cycle into 4 distinct stages, and there's a decline phase. And decline phases in products happen typically when the market, when revenues start to fall, and it's typically not a nice steady fall off, and products fall off cliffs. So what you typically see a team do is start to look for the signatures of product decline. So product decline happens when new regulation hits. That means your product becomes irrelevant. Think of the petrol or diesel engine versus the electric engine over the next 10 years. And when better ways are sort of found to actually solve the same problem, think of automated accountancy, robotic accountancy systems versus the traditional systems, or when the need just becomes irrelevant. So you often start to see a drip off, and it's not uniform across markets. The first sign that your product is in decline is when a key or a primary market starts to go into decline, maybe in isolation of everyone else. So that could be regional, it could be sector specific. But I would recommend reading Crossing the Chasm by Geoffrey Moore to get yourself fully briefed on life cycle.
Super. Thanks for that answer, Gary. And we also have a very interesting question. I think this has to be shared between Tobias and Kari Bente. The question is, when you are a product manager, when sudden requests and pressure comes from the sales and business development teams. For an example, I need this feature tomorrow or to get this important customer. How do you handle it? Because you basically do a scope creep into your roadmap. Tobias, do you want to take on that?
I mean, it's I guess it's twofold. I mean, if I as a product owner see, hey, this is meaningful and this should be part of the product really, then of course I try to accommodate it and try to adapt the roadmap. But there are of course sometimes requests where I as a product owner don't think it makes much sense to do it, or to do it the way that it was communicated to do it. And then it's I mean, then at the end of the day, it's the product manager in Gary's drawing, so the guy above me, or maybe even the CEO, to make the call and say, hey, this is now important, do this. So someone has to make the decision, but and then we have to follow it. But I would not do that without a discussion if I disagree.
Right. And Kari Bente, now in such a situation, because the next question is also related a little bit to that. In such a situation, if you want to get the market feedback to ensure that you're actually not implementing something for a particular prospect, but to maybe more of a general market feature. How do you do that? How do you get that feedback? There's a question related to that as well.
Yeah, I'll just a comment to what Tobias just said, because I worked a lot with huge clients with B2B software solutions that they're using, standard software. And I find that most large clients do really have an understanding, and that's getting even more mature, that we need to follow a roadmap. And I find from a sort of company perspective that it is a very slippery slope if you start saying yes to all requests because your sales rep says, oh, I really need this and I need it next week and we need to, change the roadmap, because you will be winning in the short term and you'll be losing sight of your long-term goals. And that's really, the communication part where you have to have that communication flowing, but being able to say this will actually be on the roadmap, but it will be in first quarter 2023. And this is how you can work around that work process or what you need to be done in the meantime. So you're actually solving the client's needs without jumping to the requests. And I think that's so important to have that communication internally, being able to have a solid front working with the market. What was the next, Hasit? I don't really think we have the time. It's 1 minute.
Yes, I think we can conclude. I think we answered most of the questions, actually all the questions, Kari. So thank you very much for participating in this panel and being a very active audience. Kari, would you like to do the closing remarks?
I very much would. Thank you so much for being here and for all you guys and girls, that's me, contributing. So what we're doing here is creating a community for us and anyone that has our role, which is a product manager, product owner, aspiring product owner, anyone in this segment. So what we've done is, hang on, I'll just share my screen. We've created a universe that currently consists of these series of webinars and also a LinkedIn community group. So we will be inviting you all to this community group. We really ask you to join it, and please feel free to invite other people that you know in your network and also get that communication flowing between you. Because I know that sometimes we feel quite alone in our role. So it's really good to have that experience across maturity of products. And the next webinar will be on Wednesday, the 14th of September, when we're done with our summer holidays. And I saw that there are quite a few inputs on topics that you find interesting. So we'll chisel out the agenda based on that two-way street. Because as it is a community for us, it will be a two-way street where you can also give your input. We will be sending out a very short survey to get your input as well, to make sure that we're actually pinpointing stuff that is really on our agenda, making sure that we don't speak about things that is not interesting for us. So guys, please block your time on the 14th of September, 8:30 to 9:30, and we'll see each other again then, even with a bit wider audience, I think.
Thanks a lot. That was very, very interesting.
But yeah, I agree. But then again, we are actually speaking, Tobias, so we'll leave that.
No, but I mean, what Gary also said, and very good questions. So super.
Great. Wish you all a super day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.